Mike Paralak here to entertain you. Okay, my SD card was full, so I had a new one on hand. I put it in, we should be ready to go. So this will be state foster care system, my personal perspective, part two. Okay, so as I believe I left off on the last video, I was finally living with a family. That would be the family I would live with for the majority of the time I was in foster care, approximately a year. And their names, for the sake of this video, are I took a lesson from Dragnet Sergeant Friday and changed the names to protect the innocent. But we'll call the foster mother Polly, the 5-year-old son Little Brad, and the husband, the military husband, who was constantly leaving because of the Desert Storm War at the time. I'll call him Mo, and the 18-year-old former foster kid of theirs, Joe. And as I left off on my last video, this could all be in my head. So let me just say that, because after all, I was a child. But when I think back now, even just a year or two after the facts, after I was living with this family, I would think back to certain things I saw as far as the day in and day out going on in the household that would make me go, at the time when I was a kid, I just think, oh, that's kind of weird. Whatever. And I'll go on with my day. But when a year or two after living with them, when I had a more adult mind and I started entering my teenage years, I would think back to certain things I saw and go, son of a gun. I don't know if the foster mom and that kid had something going on. I don't. Like I said, it could all be in my head, but anywho, so the foster mom that I'm calling Polly really liked the band Poison. That's what I said. I think she was a bit younger than the husband, the military husband. But anyways, she would play the Look What the Cat Dragged tape in the car all the time. I had no idea that they put on makeup. I just knew I liked the music. It wasn't until years later that I actually found the CD and bought it. And like, hey, I remember that CD. That's the one my foster mom used to play in the car all the time. Look What the Cat Dragged. It wasn't until then that I realized, why these guys put on makeup, which honestly, I wasn't impressed by it, but I wasn't appalled either. I just thought, well, the music was the most important thing to me, and I already knew at that point I liked the music, having heard the tape all the time in the car. But anyways, all that beside the point. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the song "Talk Dirty to Me" on that album. Look What the Cat Dragged. Her son, Little Brad, asked her once while we were playing and listening to it in the car, Mom, what are they saying? They're saying, talk to me, Little Brad. And even at the time, being 11, 12, even at the time, being a kid myself, I thought I would laugh to myself. The only other thing I wanted to share in regards to that was the part of the tape where Mama, let me go to the show. Mama, let me go to the show. I do the bad boys and play that rock and roll. Mama, let me go out tonight. I gotta go. I gotta go to the show. You heard your mother. Turn that off. I don't know. Well, anyway, she would always turn that part down so the kid couldn't hear the guy say, turn that shit down. So, this goes to show, I guess, the demented mind I have, or maybe it was my upbringing up to that point, until up to that point in my life, because all for years I'd wonder, what the hell is she saying? Why does she turn it down? Why does she turn? So when I bought the CD years later and finally heard it, I was like, that's it? Meanwhile, all these years, I had all these demented things that the guy could have possibly have been saying at that point of this on the album. Because at one point she almost forgot. So one time I did hear him say, "You heard your mother." But for years after, until I found the CD and purchased it for myself, I would contemplate, what the hell is he saying? It's so terrible. And she turns it down every time. So anyways, okay, so that's, in a nutshell, more or less, my personal perspective of living in a state foster care system. I wasn't the most appreciative foster son. I was just, from my perspective, just I had been disappointed by adults all my life up to that point, and I, I didn't feel any of them really knew what the hell they were doing. So, in retrospect, when I think back now, they were good foster parents. Like I said in the car, I was never hungry. I was never without, suitable clothing, and I had a comfortable place to sleep, and any negativity. As a matter of fact, I think in the aftermath, I would go to live with an aunt and uncle. Likewise, my sisters, and that's the story for a part two, or next part of the story. But I remember when I did go to live with this aunt, the foster mom called me, and my attitude was like, "Why are you bothering me? I don't live with you anymore. Go away." I was totally non-appreciative of what they were providing for me: a home, shelter, food. Well, that's my perspective of state foster care system. My sisters in this time had remained with the same foster parents. That first one I mentioned, with the woman I called Lisa, and the husband whose name I didn't know, but he watched The Simpsons. My sisters, both of them, would remain to live with those foster parents for the duration of the time that all three of us were in foster care before we went to live with aunts and uncles. But the only distinctive memory is I know my sisters really didn't. The brothers in the household picked on them, I guess, and in the short time I lived there, I didn't exactly get along with them myself. But this is adolescence, so who gets along with anybody in adolescence? But one distinctive memory I do remember having is, as I stated in part one, we lived with this family through the holidays, like the first couple weeks of January. This was the time when it was really cold out. I remember that. And I didn't say anything, but the foster brother, we went with him on his paper route for some weird reason. And he called the father, his father, and said that my sister and I were cold, and we wanted him to come get us. And I'm like, I wasn't cold. My sister wasn't cold. That guy was cold. So that's really the only distinctive memory I have of that I could share on this platform as far as that goes. But anywho, in comparison to myself and my sisters, those kids probably led a more pampered life than we did. So, but anyways, all right, that'll be it for right now. I got other stuff that I need to get done, and better stop this before it stops abruptly, because this is about the time my father calls. All right, thank you for watching.